Hello everyone, welcome back. This is a video on child custody as a part of our Unit 5 discussion. In this video, I would be telling you what exactly is a child custody and the rules of child custody under different personal laws and secular laws, including Hindu, Muslim, and Christian laws. And then we'll move ahead to the joint custody and how far joint custody is feasible and what is the international approach to joint custody rules, followed by the conclusion. Now, if we talk about custody, the child custody post divorce or judicial separation, the child custody becomes the most difficult question which a court of law ever face because of the following three reasons. The first reason is that in case of a divorce or judicial separation, the worst affected party are the children. In case of divorce or any kind of a family breakdown, the most badly affected party are the children rather than the spouses, if you talk about. But the children who is involved are the worst affected party. Second, for proper development of a child, both parents are required. So choosing either one of them is a difficult task before the court of law, and there's no proper structure. There's no foolproof arrangement through which court can decide whether the mother is much more suitable or the father is much more suitable. So that's the reason why it becomes very difficult for the court of law to choose between either one of the parents to grant the custody. But the way we understand conventionally the child custody in India is basically about choosing either mother or father to whom the child custody has to be granted. And that's the reason why in this video and in the scheme of presentation also I talked about joint custody, how far joint custody is feasible, because for the proper development and the nurturing of the child, both parents are required, and you cannot end up choosing either one or the other. You can't say that the moms are the better parents or the fathers are the better parent. Both of them has an equal role to play in the life and the upbringing of a child. So that's the reason it becomes very difficult for the court of law. First, the children are the worst affected party of a divorce or a family, rather than the spouses. It is the children who are the worst affected party in case of divorce or a family dispute. And there's no proper mechanism to justify that why you choose mother over the father, or why you choose father over the mother to grant child custody. And for the proper development of the child, both the parents are indispensable. Secondly, absence of any scale to determine better parent. As I already told you, there is no scale to determine who is the better parent, whether moms are the better parents or the father are the better parent. Both of them has a role to play, and they have a separate domain and their separate role to play, and it cannot be substituted or taken over by the other. Now, in child custody, I told you the system which we have is not foolproof, but there are certain guiding principles which the court follows at the time when they grant custody to either one of the parents or they go for a joint custody. And that principle is the welfare of the child. The same thing is also there in the JJ Act. Earlier also it was there in Guardians and Ward Act. So in Carla Gannon case, what court said, child's welfare is the supreme consideration, irrespective of the rights and wrongs the parents contend. So what is the most important criteria to determine the custody question is the welfare of the child. The same approach which we have adopted in JJ Act also, Juvenile Justice Act also, the same thing is also there. The welfare of the child is the most important consideration, irrespective of what right one parents are having or what wrongs are there. So you cannot argue on the ground of your rights of parenthood alone to determine the custody battle. What exactly is important is the welfare of the child. Your right to parenthood comes after the welfare of the child. So sometimes it will happen that your rights of parenthood will be superseded by the welfare of the child. The thing which we have seen in Neelratan Kundu versus Abhijit Kundu. Now what happened in Neelratan Kundu versus Abhijit Kundu? The mother was dead. She passed away due to certain reasons. And the father was alive. And the father asked the custody and the child was in the custody of his grandparents, the maternal grandparents, the nana nani. The child was with the nana nani, and the father asked for the custody on the death of the mother. The court refused to grant custody, and the court said the custody will remain with the maternal grandparents rather than going to the father. And there's a whole history in this judgment, the whole background of the judgment. The father was abusive, and it was alleged that because of the negligence of the father, the mother died, and the father was not taking care of this. The husband was not taking care of the mother, and even the child who is involved in this case, the Antrik, she was also born at Nana Nani's place. So there are the whole background to it. So what I'm trying to tell you is that what is not important is the right of parenthood. So the father was arguing that my right of parenthood, if you have to preserve my right of parenthood, which is the part of right to life and personal liberty, and grant the custody of the child to me. The court said no. What is important and determining criteria is the welfare of the child, and by considering the fact and circumstances of the case, it does not look that the welfare of the child would be served if the child is given in the custody of the father, who was abusive in nature, who was very negligent in his duty, and he was not taking care of the mother, and most of the time the mother was at her parents' place only. And these, considering all these background, the court granted custody to the grandparents rather than granting it to the father. So what is important is the welfare of the child, and the welfare of the child is so important that even the right of parenthood comes after the welfare of the child. So this is one thing which you have to keep in mind. The ultimate yardstick to determine child welfare is the welfare of the child. The yardstick to determine the custody of the child is the welfare of the child. Irrespective of your rights and wrongs, what rights you have, the right of parenthood, you have the right of life and liberty, and the right to life and liberty you have right of parenthood. It does not matter. What matters is the welfare of the child. Neeratan Kundu versus Abhijit Kundu is a very important case, and I am giving you as a part of the reading also. Now, as I told you, Guardians and Wards Act 1890, the welfare of the child is not a new concept, and it is not just the givings of the JJ Act, although sometimes it is presumed that the whole concept of welfare of the child came from the JJ Act. But even before the JJ Act, the Guardians and Ward Act of 1890 talked about the welfare of the child. And the Guardian and Ward Act is a secular legislation concerning guardianship and the custody for children, irrespective of the religion. The Section 7 of Guardians and Ward Act says that at the time, if you are appointing a guardian for person or property of a minor or both of a minor, what is necessary is the welfare of the child. You have to consider in mind, you have to satisfy yourself with the idea where the welfare of the minor is being served, and accordingly you will determine the custody. So if you see Section 17 of the Guardians and Ward Act, you will find that it talks about factor to be considered for appointing guardian. The first factor is the welfare of the child. The fact regarding age, sex, or the religion are secondary. The fact regarding are secondary to it. So important thing is the welfare of the child. So these are the considerations: welfare of the child, age, sex, and the religion, character and capacity of the proposed guardian, how closely related the proposed guardian is to the minor, and the wishes. The wishes of the minor also has to be taken into account. So these are the skeleton framework, the guidelines for granting child custody. And these guidelines are still followed, although in a little modified form, but still these guidelines are followed. So for example, when a custody question goes, the court evaluates the merit of the case, listens to the argument of both the parties, and the court also takes the wishes of the child who is involved. If the child is of a reasonable age and he can express his wish, for example, even a 7-year-old or 8-year-old, the judges will call the child into the chamber and will ask the wishes of the child also. So what I'm trying to tell you is that the Section 17 guidelines are still followed, although in a little modified and refined form. These guidelines are still followed while determining the custody of the child. Now, if we go to Hindu personal law, So we have Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act of 1956, and Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act under Section 6 talks about the custody. So what Section 6 does is provide you a skeleton guidelines, a default mechanism on which the custody could be granted. And it has a very unique kind of a criteria which is given, which is sometimes criticized also. So it says a minor child less than 5 years old will go to the mother. The custody, if a child is less than 5 years old, and the question comes to whom the custody of the child should be given, the custody would be given to the mother, because 5-year-old children, breastfeeding is involved, and the child, infant, and this category of a minor child should go to the mother because of many reasons, because the child is very, very small, and breastfeeding will also be involved. Then a minor child above 5 years, the custody will go to the father, and after him the custody will go to the mother. So till the child is 5 years, the custody will, by default mechanism is that custody will go to the mother, and after 5 years the custody will go to the father, and after father the custody will go to the mother. That means in the absence of the father, the custody will go to the mother. This is the default mechanism which we have. Third, it says illegitimate children, the custody will always go to the mother, because the legitimacy and illegitimacy of a child is determined by the father, whether the father is known or the father is not known, or the father has acknowledged or the father has not acknowledged. The illegitimate children, the custody will go to the mother, and after her it will go to the father, if any. And in case of minor married girl, the custody would be with husband, although this is now redundant after Prohibition on Child Marriage Act. And regarding one point, and point number 2 is important to us, which says 5 years mother, and above 5 years father, and in the absence of father, the mother. Now this point 2 was criticized, and it was challenged in different cases. One of the leading cases was Geeta Hariharan versus RBI, 1990 Supreme Court judgment, in which this provision which says that the default mechanism to grant a custody of a minor child above 5 will go to the father, and in the absence of the father it will go to the mother, was questioned. And the court said that in the absence or after him does not mean the death of the father. What does it basically means is that in the absence of the father or after him means that even in a situation where the father is careless, he is negligent towards, and he is not good enough to take care of the child, the custody will go to the mother. So earlier what used to happen, after him was explained or interpreted in the fashion as if after the death of the father. But when Geeta Hariharan court said that even in the lifetime of the father, the custody could be granted to the mother if it is proved that the father is absent, or he is negligent, or he is not caring enough for the child, the custody could be granted to the mother also. Similarly, in Neelathan Kundu versus Abhijit Kundu, what court did, and it is even one more step ahead of Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act, it says that the custody, if you read section 6, it look like as if the custody is a question between, as a battle between mother and the father. This is what it looks like. So mother, and in the absence of mother, father, or father in the absence of father, it goes to the mother. But what court in Neelathan Kundu said that what is important for us is the welfare of the child, and the custody can even go beyond natural guardians. As I told you earlier, also in Neelathan Kundu versus Abhijit Kundu, the mother passed away, and the father claimed custody from Nana Nani, and the child was with the Nana Nani. The court said no, since the father was abusive in nature. The court said the custody will remain with the Nana Nani and will not go to the father. So even the custody can go beyond natural guardians. So now the question arises that what is the relevance of section 6 of Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act? The one thing you have to keep in mind, the court are not strictly bound by section 6. and there are inherent problems with the section 6. You cannot put a category that till 5 is mother, and after 5 the child will go leave the house of the mother and will go to the father. You cannot have such kind of category, strict compartment to grant child custody. And these are just the default mechanism, these are just the guiding lines, these are just the skeleton framework, and the court are not strictly bound by it. What the court are strictly bound by, they are strictly bound by the idea of welfare of the child, and if the welfare of the child is served beyond mother and father, the court will go ahead and will grant custody to somebody else rather than giving it to mother and the father. The same thing was held in Lee Ratan Kundu versus Abhijit Kundu, and that's the reason why Lee Ratan Kundu and Abhijit Kundu was is very important case, which again buttresses the point that that welfare of the child is the most important thing. Now coming to Muslim personal law, in Muslim personal law, the custody is called as hizana, hizanat or hizana, and you will also find in Muslim personal law they have a gender stereotyping in granting custody. The same stereotyping is also there in other laws in India, but in Muslim personal law also there is a gender stereotype when it comes to granting custody, and the law favor much more towards the mother and make a presumption that the moms are the better parents, and when you have to choose them to the mother. So what it says, mother's right of custody, hizana, Sunni Hanafi law. As per Sunni Hanafi law, male child till 7 years, the custody will always be with the mother. The default mechanism is with the mother. And female till puberty, the custody will remain with the mother. According to Shia law, the male child till 2 years, custody will remain to the mother, and female child till 7 years, the custody will remain to the mother. Again, one thing you have to keep in mind, these are the default mechanism, but the court can, just like Section 6 of Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act, the court can make a departure from these specification also, and can go beyond it, because the welfare of the child is more important, irrespective of whether it's Hindu law, Muslim law, or the Christian laws. So although these provisions are still applicable, but what rules is the welfare of the child. Now this is the mother's right, which is given, the mother's right of custody till 7-year male child in case of Sunni law, and till puberty, and so and accordingly for Shia law. After this, now if we have this situation and the mother is absent, means for example the mother is dead, suppose, what will happen? The custody will go to other female relatives. So if for example the child is of a male child, a Sunni male child is of 1 year old, and the mother passed away, the custody will not go to the father, but the custody will go to other female relatives, which are mother's mother, father's mother, mother's grandmother, father's grandmother. So if mother is not there, the custody will go to mother's mothers. If mother's mother is absent, means she is dead or she is not present, it will go to father's mothers, and in the absence of father's mothers, it will go to mother's grandmother, and so on and so forth. If none of these 7 relatives are present, female relatives are present, the custody will go to the male relative, which include father, paternal grandfather, full brother, consanguine brother, full brother's son, consanguine brother's fathers, and so on and so forth. So that's the understanding in case of a Muslim law. It goes to the mother. In the absence of mother, it goes to 7 female relatives, and in the absence of those female relatives comes the father, and in the absence of the father comes the other male relative. There are few cases in Zahid Ali versus Kayseri, Allahabad High Court judgment says that the financial stability of the mother is not a disability. So you cannot argue in the court of law that the mother is not earning. Since she is not earning, she should not be given the custody of the child. This is irrelevant, because the responsibility of the child also comes from the father. The father has to provide maintenance to the child, the minor children. Again, in Irfan Ahmed versus Mumtaz, 1989, Bombay High Court, the court said remarriage is also not a disability. The mere fact the mother remarried is not a disability to lose the custody of the child. So even if you have remarried, one of the spouses remarried, you can still claim custody of the child. So remarriage is not a disability. Now regarding Christian personal laws, we have Indian Divorce Act, or just the Divorce Act 1869, and under section 41 of the Divorce Act, the court is given power to pass order regarding custody of the children. And it is in the same line as we have discussed earlier. One leading case under Christian personal laws is Rosie Jacob versus Jacob A. Chakramakal, in which the court said all orders relating to the custody of the minor ward from their very nature must be considered to be a temporary order made in the existing circumstances. Now this is, although this is Christian personal law judgment, but the same rule is applicable to other personal laws also. So whenever you have an order regarding a child custody, all these orders are the temporary order, and you can challenge it subsequently if there is a change in the existing circumstances. So for example, just after the divorce, the court grants the custody of the child to the father or to the mother. It does not mean this order is for all times to come. If you can prove there's a change of circumstances, you can also change the custody order. So maybe just after divorce, the custody is granted to the father, but if there's a change in circumstances, you can file a case again and take the custody of the child back. So all these orders are the temporary orders, and the same thing was held in Rosie Jacob versus Jacob A. Chakramakal. The small brief notes on this Rosie Jacob versus Jacob A. Chakramakal I would be uploading on the Genome portal. Now, after seeing all these rules on child custody and the visible flaws of these rules, and the absence of a foolproof arrangement to determine who is the better parent and to whom the custody should be granted, what has been done to answer all these problems? Because there's no foolproof arrangement to choose whether to whom the custody should be granted. There's no yardstick to determine who is the better parent. And for the proper upbringing of the child, both mother and the father they are indispensable, and they have their own specific roles, and it cannot be overtaken by one or the other. They are equally important. Although they have different roles, they are equally important in their own domain. To answer all these problems, the concept of joint custody has, from recent time, from last 2-3 decades, the concept of joint custody has been mooted. That can we have a joint custody instead of choosing one parent? Can we grant the custody jointly to both the parents, although these parents are divorced, but they remain the parents, because the bond of the marital bond can be broken, but the bond which is created by blood can never be broken. So you may not be husband and wife anymore, but you will always remain mother and the father of the child who is in question. So marital bond can be broken, but the bond created by blood cannot be broken. So you remain. So can joint custody be granted, and how far these joint custody are feasible? Now, what is joint custody? It is also called as shared physical custody of the child after divorce or a marital discord. So instead of choosing either mother or father, the court chooses both of them, even after the divorce. And how it is done? A parenting plan is prepared, in which the physical custody of the child is shared. So there are different kind of parenting plan you can prepare. For example, there has been cases in which the court says for 6 months the child will remain with the father, and for another 6 months the child will go to the mother. Or you can have a parenting plan in which you can make arrangement around weekdays the child would be with one parent, and then weekends the child would be with other parents, and then on summer vacation and winter vacation the child would be with the other parents. So there are different cases in India and across the globe where certain kind of arrangement has been made. This parenting plan is very important when it comes to joint custody, because now the court is not choosing mother or the father, but the court is choosing both of them. But these both parents are not staying together because they are divorced. So you have to prepare a parenting plan. And how this parenting plan is done, the court asks the ask the divorced spouses only, the parents, to prepare a parenting plan. So they have to come to a conclusion. So there has been a judgment in which what the parenting plan which was suggested by the parents and approved by the court says for weekdays the child will remain with the mother, and on weekends the child will go to the father, because now he's being with the mother more and with the child father less, because Saturday Sunday only to the father and the whole week with the mother. The court said on summer vacation and winter vacation, the majority of the portion in summer vacation and winter vacation, the child would be with the father. So weekdays with mother, weekends with the father, and summer vacation, winter vacation with the father. The major chunk of summer vacation and winter vacation with the father, or 6 months with the mother and 6 months with the father, or any kind of arrangement which is feasible and which is practical. So it has to be practical. So the child cannot, like for example, and that's the reason the joint custody can be given in very limited cases. For example, in a situation where there is a physical geographical proximity between the two parents, the two divorced spouses, divorced party, there is a geographical proximity. So if the parents are living in the same city, 6-month arrangement is possible, weekends arrangement and weekdays arrangement is possible. But if the parents, the divorced parents, are living in two different states or too far away, so one is living in Karnataka and other is living in Meghalaya, thing would not be possible, because every 6 months you will not be changing the school of the child. So you have to, when you prepare a parenting plan, you have to keep in mind that it should be very practical, and it is it's something which could be executed. Now, when it comes to India, we don't have any laws regarding joint custody. There are only few judgments which we have, and that's the only guidelines which we have. There are few cases which we have, and there is one 2015 Law Commission report on joint custody. Other than that, we have nothing on joint custody or how it has to be done. The one of the most popular case on joint custody, as I was telling you, is the Karnataka High Court judgment of 2013, which is KM Vinaya versus B. Srinivas. It's the most popular judgment and one of the first judgment on joint custody. Now, what court did in this case? The court granted the custody. The minor child was directed to be with the father from 1st January to 30th June, and with the mother from 1st July to 31st December of every year. So 6 months with the father and 6 months with the mother. The parents were directed to share equally the education and the expenditure of the child. Each parent was given visitation rights on Saturdays and Sundays when the child was living with the other parents. The child was allowed to use telephone or video conference with each other while living with the other. This is KM Vinaya versus B. Srinivas, Karnataka High Court judgment. So one thing you have to keep in mind, in this case, there was a geographical proximity, and that this parenting plan which was given by the parents and approved by the court was practical, because sometimes the things are not possible. You cannot change the school of the child every 6 months. So they were living in the same city, it was practical, things were done. So you have to see the practical aspect of the custody rules also. Now, why we need joint custody? As I told you, for proper development and the nurturing of the child, both parents are indispensable. You cannot give a hierarchy that who is the important parent and who is less important and who is more important, or the moms are the better parents or the fathers are the better parents. So second, there is a changing family role. The gender stereotype which we earlier had, that all the child care and the household domestic responsibility is basically of a female. This is now being changing. There's a changing family role. Everybody has an equal responsibility and right when it comes to earning, going out to work, or taking care of a domestic work or household responsibility or a child care. Both male and the female have a equal responsibility on both the front, inside the house and outside the house. Children need adequate opportunity to bond with each parent. Joint custody would only. In Neeratan Kundu versus Abhijit Kundu, this was one of the argument of the father, that I have never been given opportunity to bond up with my child. So what happened in Neeratan Kundu versus Abhijit Kundu? The court called the child, the judges called the child Antriksh, the name of the child was Antriksh, a funny name. The the judges called Antriksh in their chambers and asked his wishes, and the child chooses the grandparents rather than choosing the father. And the father argued that this choice of the child should not be considered because I have never been given an opportunity to bond up with my child. So when the child has never been with me, how he will choose me? The court also rejected his argument, saying that the child was not with you because of your own fault, because you were negligent, you were not taking care of the child, and whenever responsibility, whenever the thing of spending money comes, you will send the child, the mother to her parents' house. Even the child was born at grandparents' house because the father wants to evade his responsibility of when it comes to expenditure. When it comes to taking of dowry and other things, he was not so hesitant, but when it comes to responsibility, he was hesitant. Uh, Children should have contact with both parents regardless of whether parents reconcile or not. So, irrespective of what is the relationship between the husband and the wife, the children should have equal responsibility, equal opportunity to contact both of the parents. And again, it is an answer to gender-based stereotypes, which I have already discussed with you, because these gender stereotype is also there when it comes to the custody rules. Now, how far the joint custody is feasible is again question, and that's the reason it is being used in very limited cases, and it cannot be widely used. One thing is that a stable and anchored home is the best option. You cannot possibly have a joint custody if the divorced or separated spouses are living in two different parts of the country and far away from each other. You cannot possibly change the school of the child every 6 months. Or weekends, absolutely not possible. Even in the 6 months of 1 year, you cannot possibly choose. Every time the whole background of the child is changing, the friends which the child is having, the language which the child is going to speak is changing every 6 months. This is not a best option for the nurturing of the child. A stable and an anchored home is the best option, and that's the reason it is not widely chosen. It is not healthy for a child to move between two homes all the time. It's not possible. So you have your own group of friends, you have your own comfort zone. It should not change so frequently, and it would not be good for the child. Third is that when the parents have unresolved issues, they will not be able to agree on joint decision for the child. This is another issue. If they have unresolved, if they have so they had divorce, but the animosity perpetuate beyond divorce, it will not be good for the child again, and they will not also be able to decide on the joint to agree, because I told you the parenting plan has to be prepared. The court said the court asked the parties, the divorced husband and wife, to prepare the parenting plan. So if you have unresolved issues, you will not be able to take joint decisions for the children, and your unresolved issues will also trickle down on the child. So when the child would be with the mother, the mother would try to undo whatever teaching the father has done, and when the child would be with the father will try to undo whatever teachings the mothers have done, or will talk bad about the mother, and the mother will talk bad about the father. This should not happen. So if the parents have unresolved issues and their animosity continues beyond divorce also, which is the case in case of India also, even if you are divorced, the animosity continues beyond it because of the many reasons. Now, in regard to international approach to joint custody, we have many countries across the globe which have well structured procedure or law regarding joint custody. So in case of US, we have UK, South Africa, Canada. So there are few countries which have well structured joint custody rules. For example, in the state of Virginia, state of Georgia, and the state of California, in their family code, they have a family code on joint custody. And for them, joint custody can refer to several things, including joint legal custody, joint physical custody, or combination of both. So physical custody is different from legal custody, what we are talking about. But when we talk about joint custody, we are basically stressing upon physical custody more. But the joint custody also means legal custody. Legal custody in terms of taking calls regarding where the child will go for education, which is school to choose, for example, would be a part of legal custody. Other such kind of a decision which is you are going to take rather than just having the physical custody. In case of US, they have they have put a whole system, a very rigorous system in place to determine the child custody. So they have a custody officer who prepare a custody evaluation and give parent rating to the parent, and then determine whether the parents are suitable enough for a joint custody or not. So they have a well structured law with custody officer, custody evaluation, parental ratings. Although US law is also criticized on many grounds, but they had a exhaustive procedure for granting joint custody. In Canada, United Kingdom, and South Africa, also they have a structure on joint custody. There's one case which you can note down, which is the New York case, Bremen versus Bremen. What it says: judicial custody is encouraged primarily as a voluntary alternative for relatively stable and amicable parents behaving in mature, civilized fashion. As a court-ordered arrangement imposed upon already embattled and embittered parents accusing one another of serious vices and wrong, it can only enhance familial cause. Now, while determining the joint custody, there are certain things which you have to keep in mind. There are certain there are certain guidelines which you have to keep in mind. These guidelines have slowly and gradually evolved over a period of time through different case laws. One of them guidelines is that is the first there should be a geographical proximity between the parents, and secondly, in cases where the divorce has been it has not been stable and amicable parents, and the divorce has been a very hateful kind of an affair, the joint custody is not a feasible option, because the same hatred which is there between the parents, the animosity which is there between the parents, will again trickle down on the child, and it will enhance the familiar powers which the child has already witnessed. So first, you should divorce in mature, civilized fashion. If your divorce has been a very ugly episode, and if your animosity continues, if the animosity between the divorced parent continues beyond divorce, the joint custody will not be a feasible option, because in many cases it has been observed the same thing continues. As I told you earlier also, so when you are at the mother and you go back to the father's place, the father tries to undo the teaching of the mother and will talk bad about the mother, and the same thing mother will do against the father. So if we have such kind of an arrangement, and if we have these animosity perpetuating beyond divorce, it would not be a viable option in the child. It will not be good for the mental health. So there are certain guidelines which we have to keep in mind. So what are these guidelines, the proposed guidelines? I have a reading for you, which is reading 1 on joint custody, in which I talked about certain guidelines which have to be adopted while granting child custody. I wish that you should read those guidelines also, and you will get a good idea about what is joint custody. So detailed discussion about the further discussion about joint custody is in the reading 1. I request you all to go for the reading. So this is it. Thank you so much. If you have any query, please post it in the Q&A forum on the Genomio platform. Take care. Bye.